The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. What's good, everybody? I'm GG. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. First thing I want to do is give a shout out to all the haters out there. We know they ain't gonna never stop. They always got something snide and slick to say. Keep on, man. Keep on doing your thing, man. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button, man. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button so you can stay on top of what's going on here on the Green Gorilla channel. And like I always do, I want to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel and the people who help support it and to keep it going. So shout out to Julius Ferguson, Lord Hamal, Lee Ways, Felix Olapatuyi, Electrician 480, Black Swerve 404, Jay Cleveland Green, Pete Rock, Tahuti, and Gold Professor. Big up to y'all. Big up to Brotherly Love, DF, Aaron Peters, Zanko, Barnolas, hiphop.catv, Dardar, Michael Ross, Vincent Lindsay, Michael Pearson, Beautiful Trauma. Big up. Big up to Quiz the Poet, Black Quizzard 80OS, Jazz Tech, Shadow Observer, Sugar T, Artisan MC, Nasiana, Kyle J. Sura, Kareem, Troy Warren, and Jeff R. Big up. Big up to Mrs. KP Bailey, Cutting Up with the Jones, Ricky Dawson, Alan Wiley, The Face, Mantis on Break, Life of Commerce, Truth 7360, Marvin Evans, A. Wilson's Ghost, and Timothy Blewett. Big up. Big up to Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., Mark Holt, John J., Afro Troop TV, Adam, BGS Ibmore, Ignatz Mouse, Brian Peaks, and Papa Didas. Big up. Big up to Scott Haywood, Black Uru Strikes, Dr. Treat 33, Leroy Honeycutt, Broken Blade, Super Tech, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Karen S, Anthony Davis, and Seven Coast Dojo. Big up. Big up to Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Charles Gilmore, Patricia Colley, Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, and Cameron 87. Big up. Big up to Doc LaRock, Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coach Hotep, Old Soul Chief, Mr. Blue Collar, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, and Mr. Heat. Big up. Big up to Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C Truth the Revelator, Aaron Infinite, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalonja Kala, Hostile Adept, and WPR1. Big up to all of y'all, man. And on my Patreon side, I'd like to give a shout out to Nick, Malcolm Smith, Rock, Albert C, Dr. Ben Vincent, I Am the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, William Joyner, Tyrone Hampton, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Anu 219, Preserve Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, NEU, Momal, and the Sangwa. Big up to all of y'all, man. Can't forget the brothers Force Windu, David Carroll, and Kevin Samuels, man. Big up. Y'all deserve a round of applause, man. And if you're wondering about how you can support the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis, man, here's how you do it. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, man, we back. You know who I am. I'm GG, man. Also known as the G with the PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. And, I got a guest today. You already know who he is. He goes by the name of Sand Dog. What's cracking with you, Sand Dog?
What's going on, team? Root, man. I was jet lagged, man. I was done yesterday.
Oh man, what, you just got back to the UAE yesterday?
Yeah, man. That was it,
wow.
man. And then, yeah, man. And then I hung out with my chapter, bro. So, dog, you know how that go, man. I was a prisoner of the groove, and I loved it.
They had you stuck deep in the groove, huh?
Yeah, the prisoner of the groove, man. My LB was like, "Yo, you know you kidnapped, right?" And I was, and we went on from there.
Yeah, man. When the bros get you, they got you.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? Well, you going where they going.
I had a ball.
You drinking what they drinking. You eating what they eating. You sleeping where they sleeping. You out where they out. It just is what it is.
Yeah, though. But it was good, though, man. I had a good time.
For sure. For the most part, man, I want you to, kind of let everybody know what it is that you're going to discuss today and how it fits in with what we've been discussing with the series you wanted to kick off from the beginning, man. So let's, with no further ado, man, let's get right into it, bro.
Yeah, man, we'll get right into it, man. So again, this whole thing is about, changing the narrative, right? In terms of, that black people or black men specifically were just in America, just taking it. And, the fact that, the foundations of America, because, you have a lot of revisionist history where they're trying to, kind of push out some of the atrocities, or not some of, many of the atrocities that were held against what would eventually be called African Americans. And so, the idea is, or the thought behind the series was to expose you to the history, and then, also our progress within that history, how we advanced, and then how that advancement was taken from us. And so the last one that we did was the Black church, that we talked about. And so, now today, a lot of people would want to, badmouth the Black church, but the Black church is the foundation of all our institutions, right? It helped us put together families, gave us HBCUs, and other political organizations and vehicles, charity organizations, to help our people and support our cause. And so at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the Black church itself that's lost its stripes, but it's the moral value or the conditioning of the people and the times that they live in. So, we somehow, for American culture, just in general, people would, in a sense, become more materialistic and kind of, go more or less towards the prosperity preaching. So, so before you would, badmouth the church, the members of said institutions would have to look at themselves and look at what they value and what they want their specific relationships with God to be within their, bodies. And so today, what I wanted to talk about was to change the narrative on, states' rights, right? And the fact of the matter that, states' rights, wasn't your rights.
Say it again.
States' rights wasn't your rights, right? So, again, so the idea, because, you'll have many people out there who will, they'll argue and they'll say that the Civil War was about states' rights. And that's great, but the states' right to do what? Right?
Precisely, yeah. That's all, man. All that equivocation and dodging and sidestepping, man, and juking and double dribbling and carrying the rock. Come on, man. Like let's just be honest about it, man. Like, I understand that there are conservative guys in the space, but I mean, come on, man. We can't fall for the okie doke, man. I was
Yeah.
born at night, but I wasn't born last night. I know damn well, the whole conversation surrounding states' rights had to do heavily with the issue of slavery.
Correct. And so again, it goes back to what I said, that when you look at, even within American politics, when you look at the terms liberal or conservative, these terms are more or less in relationships to economics. As a matter of fact, Gigi, right before I get into it, maybe one day when you're free, we could sit down and talk about the two guys who are the opposite sides of the same coin, right? Which is, Adam Smith and Karl Marx, and so, Adam Smith, being tied to capitalism, and, Marx being, Marx being the other side of it.
Communist
And
socialist.
correct. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that a lot of people, I think that a lot of people would be, would be well off to hear it, because, at the end of the day, like I said, it's really two sides. It's really two sides of the same coin. So they both balance each other out. But when you get into like the Civil War, because the way history likes to paint it is that, the things that would get you to the Civil War were all these America having like moral dialogue and these moral questions. And yes, for some, there will be altruistic means to it. How the early church, Protestant churches in America, before they ended up under Southern influence, were actually preach against it. There was a stance against it, and so later on, you would have it where. So you would have it where, in our history, people will try to paint it. So, states' rights, are mentioned in the 10th Amendment of our, are mentioned in the 10th Amendment of our Constitution, right? And so I'm trying to remember, let me not misspeak. So hold on, I'm just going to look at my notes real quick. So when you look at it, it will be, yeah, so yeah, it's the 10th Amendment, you know what I'm saying, ratified in 1791. And basically, it's talking about, for the most part, our country, the body having, the federal government upholding the Constitution, and then for the most part, the states, determining, what their own rules and laws, are going to be without much intrusion from the federal government, right? So starting with this, this will be, the beginning of the argument of, states' rights and the federal government, imposing its will on the state. Another myth will be high taxation, right? And so, they would say that, well, the North had, imposed high tariffs under the South, during the nullification controversies, right, from 1831, I think it's to 1833. And so there was a lot of back and forth, especially with the state of South Carolina, about the high tariffs that were being imposed by the North. But that also would have nothing to do with the Civil War, because they ended up settling that dispute just a few years later, with the South paying far less in tariffs or taxes, right? So that in and of itself is, out the window, right? And then you had, so, and then you would have, the big one where it says that, Abraham Lincoln desired, that was his desire to free the slaves, and Abraham Lincoln couldn't have cared less one way or another, right? What he desired was to preserve the Union, expand the United States, from sea to shining sea. So Abraham Lincoln was like, man, if I could preserve the Union with or without slavery, or some people enslaved or some people free, whatever which way I could preserve the Union, I'm going to preserve it. So it wasn't, so even for him, it wasn't this stand of, it wasn't this stand of righteousness, you know what I'm saying? And so, you get down to it, which is ultimately, the maintaining, the maintaining of white supremacy, from the southern states. So, for example, you would get and I'm going to mispronounce his name. So it was, a French guy, right? And so, his, he rationalized white supremacy. His name was Montesquieu or Montesquieu.
Montesquieu.
Can you say it for me?
Montesquieu.
Okay, Montesquieu, right? And so again, in 1748, he said it is impossible for us to suppose these creatures, enslaved Africans, to be men, because allowing them to be men, a suspicion will follow that we ourselves are not Christians, right? And so this is when you get into that, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when a lot of people talk about how it wasn't about slavery, they would say, well, not all white people in the South, own slaves, right? And so it wouldn't even be, it was only the rich people, and not everybody saw it the same way. But that's a lie, because even many of the poor white farmers, they aspired themselves one day to own slaves, right? Because again, back then, man, slaves, a slave in and of his or herself is worth more than some of the manufacturing bases that you had in the North, right? Because at that time, you're looking at 80%, just about 80% of America's GDP was coming from the South, right? And so, so when you look at, so-called moral issues, be it states' rights, Abraham Lincoln, and all of that stuff, all of those things, for the most part, are revisionist history. And the appetite, or what would the appetite for states' rights at the end of the day, was the preservation of slavery and white supremacy. You know what I'm saying?
But let me just say this,
Yeah.
So when it, look, when you go to places like Mississippi and South Carolina, man, like damn near half of the population owns slaves, bro.
Yeah.
Those are the facts, man.
Yeah.
To give some people, a way to get off of the hook. Nah, bro. But I can say, that at least 33%, 30 to 33% of all Southerners in the whole, Confederacy, or whatever you want to talk about it, however you want to terminate it. 1/3 of the people own slaves, man. That's a lot of people, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, I mean, at least one slave. You know what I'm saying? Of course, the numbers are going to be higher and more concentrated in a population that's wealthy. But, let's make no mistake. At least 1/3 of the people in the South own slaves, bro.
Yeah. And and the other thing too, the law that I forgot to mention would be that slavery would have naturally fizzled out, right? Which, like I said, again, which isn't true, because 75% of all they had 75% of all U.S. exports. And so at the end of the day, fam, when you're making that kind of money, you're not going to walk away from it, right?
Oh.
So again, technology or no technology. So at the at the end of the day, if Tesla wanted to make free energy out of the electromagnetic currents in the earth, right? And look at where that got them, right? Versus versus people who are looking to make money off of energy. So nobody walks away. Nobody walks away from that money to say that, okay, slavery would have ended due to its own accord. So again, if I'm making money hand over fist, I'm not going to step aside for the more efficient technology to take root, and then I'm not going to make money anymore. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, put you out of business.
Correct.
It's like that's like the automotive industry and the oil industry. Working together in tandem to try to prevent the introduction of new kinds of power technologies to basically to basically fuel, or I guess it's very hard to think about the automotive industry without fossil fuels, but to drive and propel our automotive devices. But one thing I want people to know is, man, we're not saying this because we're these hardcore liberals and we just want to denounce conservatives in American culture. That's not what this is about. Because I just want them to know, what is your political affiliation?
Gigi, I'm a Republican, man. I've been a Republican since since 1998.
But if you
So
don't know, I damn sure don't know if you don't know.
yeah, since 19, I've been Republican, man, since the late '90s, man. The first time I ever voted, man, I voted for John McCain.
And so this is not, you the one that came up with the subject matter. Okay. So
Correct.
you're a Republican and you're basically admitting that states' rights didn't have very much to do with this just, these individual states wanting to be autonomous outside of the context of slavery.
Facts. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you could be a conservative and admit that. I don't see why you can't admit that.
Yeah, but I don't know what the problem is. That's history.
Right. But I mean, I've had guys come on the show, or at least in the comment section, say that the South is more racially diverse, and that it is more racially accommodationist than, say, for example, the North. And I got my problems with both liberals and conservatives, so I don't. I think a white person is a white person in politics. That's just my viewpoint.
Yeah.
No shade, but it just is what it is.
Correct. But that's what I'm saying. So that was the approach, right? So for example, again, so now when you're talking about the beast between the North and the South, right? Because it goes back to that, right? You got the North, you want to expand westward, right? And so now you're talking about what territories are going to be free and what territories are going to be slave states as you're hitting Missouri and Kansas and going west, right? And so at the end of the day, like I said, there's some altruism there, but at the end of the day, the guys in the North wanted the westward expansion to be for white labor. So it had nothing to do with the love of Gigi or Sandal, right? They were like, again, because at the end of the day, if you have slaves everywhere, right? How is your everyday run of the mill white guy? How are they going to make money? So the idea, so for the most part, was to for the North, for the most part, was to just box slavery into the southern states where it was, and then for the guys up north, that they will be free to go and make money, in the new territories. And so this is because, like it's what you said, and I want us to be able to start listening. So, like, even in American politics, when you hear things like preserving our freedoms or preserving our way of life, all of those are economic buzzwords, right? Because again, the guys in the South, again, their economies were based on large scale farming, right, of cotton and tobacco. And in the North, you had smaller scale farming, which was mostly industrial, right? And so when you talk about the preservation of a way of life, at the end of the day, especially in this particular time, it was all centered for the most part around, white supremacy. So for Black people, it may have sounded appealing simply for the fact that, hey, I'm not going to be a slave. But if you showed up in Utah or whatever they expanded out to, or whatever, it still wasn't going to be all good.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I get that. So the North is more industrial, yes. Whereas the South is more agricultural in terms of a culture. Okay. And of course, with the agricultural culture in the South, what you get is a slave-based system. But in the North, the whole idea is to have European immigrants working in factories and fueling and driving industry forward. That's the the kind of economic schema that the people in the North were looking to push, right? Yes. But the people in the South wanted to maintain their entire, culture around farming and basically having slaves be the bulk of the labor force.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So that's, I look at people who say there's no such thing as, dog whistle politics. I look at it and laugh like, dude, I understand you don't like liberalism right now. Like the left is going like way far left. But let's just be honest, man. Can we at least be honest that, yeah, a lot of what these conservatives are pushing is some straight up racism, man.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, because you have to understand what what this language is rooted in, right? And so again, again, shout out to Dr. T.S.R. Johnson when you talk about forming the language of what will become black politics or in a sense, right, black male politics. So even for the South itself, just like our political parties now, where they flip flop, right? For example, for me, I'm Republican, right? Barack Obama gets elected, right? And everybody wants to shoot down Obamacare, but Obamacare is a Republican idea. Mitt Romney was already doing it in the state of Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now you get all of this political infighting for something that was once originally a Republican idea that Barack Obama was seeking to take, like I said, take nationwide. And so the same thing happened with the flip flop on states' rights. So for a long time in American history, the southern states held the presidency, and they held the lawmaking body, which is the Congress, House of Representatives, and everything else. And so when they were in that position, they themselves uh, weren't they weren't an open ear or open heart to the free states or the non slave holding states, right? And so now you get into like 1860, and then Abraham Lincoln, gets elected with this new Republican Party that has this anti-slavery platform, and then for the most part, like these guys begin to freak out because you get northern states who say, you know what, we're not going to give you passage through New York. We're not going to help you recover slaves that run away, and no, you can't take your Negro maids and your cooks with you for your summer vacation in the Hamptons, right? And so
Ooh,
pretty
man,
much,
that's a horrible existence, ain't it?
yeah,
Horrible
man.
existence, ain't it? You can't bring your Negro chef with you.
Yeah, can't take your Negro chef with you. So he said, how am I going to be in the Hamptons, what I'm saying, without my crawfish and my hamburgers, So,
Man,
so this is, so this is what it is. And so now you get into, what will be the declaration of immediate cause or the declaration of secession, right? And they're talking about, the things that will justify them succeeding. And so this is what the beginnings of it will be, is that that the North is somehow denying the South its rights. And so you could see these arguments mimic themselves today, right? When you look between the Democratic and the Republican Party, and the seesaw that it puts the American people through, right? And so now and so you have the secession committee headed by a man by the name of Christopher Meminger, right? And he would go on to become pretty much the founder of the Confederate financial system, and he will be their Secretary of Treasury. He will be on Jefferson Davis, who was the first Confederate president and only Confederate president. He will be on his cabinet. And so the thing about it is that you know the Confederate States have what's called a provisional constitution, right? And so for those of us, right, and so for those of us who uh, who believe that okay, states' rights, again, states' rights is something that the left uses to infringe upon people. Man, you would actually, like I said, you would actually have another thing coming, because in that provisional constitution, what the Confederacy wanted was to maintain the institution of slavery. And also what they wanted to do was they wanted to maintain the chattel slavery inside the United States. So they themselves were against the importation of slaves. Let's continue to breed them between, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and exchange them, within our economy and make money that way. Right. And so when you talk about, well, how you have people in revisionist history saying that the South didn't see race, or just like what you mentioned, that it was that it was more liberal and free in certain ways. That wasn't the case, because if the South had its way in that Constitution, you would remain, like I said, you would remain a slave, and chattel slavery will still continue to have its day in the United States.
exactly. So, um, one of the things, I wanted to say was, I remember being a student at New Orleans, man, having to walk down Jefferson Memorial. I don't know if it's a parkway or a drive, but it's a hell of a thing, man, to walk down the street and, the street named after, this Confederate general and this president, man. It just tripped me out, bro.
You didn't feel connected?
Huh? Thank you very little. Appreciate it. Excuse me?
I was just messing with your team. I said you didn't feel connected?
Man, look, also, one day I was walking down the street, man, because Jefferson Davis, like, it runs adjacent to, it runs adjacent to, it intersects with Iberville and Bienville and a whole bunch of them streets down there right around Xavier University's campus, but it's like, like I lived off campus, man, my sophomore year to my senior year, and I just had to walk to school. I didn't have a car, so I walked to school. But man, one day I was walking down near Jefferson Davis, man, a old ass white dude, man. It was a geriatric building, man, not too far away from some little hospital or some shit like that, man. But anyway, some old white dude called me a nigger, man. Told me to get out of the way, man. Bruh, it took a lot of restraint for me not to knock that old white dude in his head, man. If he was younger, you know what I'm saying, I probably would have done it. I was filled with a lot of venom at that point too, man. I probably would have knocked his ass out. You know what I mean? But I mean, just think about it. You walking down Jefferson Davis in the South, and an old ass white man, the dude had to be about 80 something. He could barely walk. Get out of the way, nigger. Man, dude, I straight up wanted to straight blast that dude, man.
Yeah, man. Well, again, shout out to like I said, shout out to desegregation, right? Like we said, follow the money.
BGS more. Shout out to BGS, man, the master teacher, man. What's cracking with you, Black Gnostic?
Yeah, crazy. And like I said, again, if I'm saying anything wrong, please correct it or come up. But again, like what BGS said, right? Who educates your children? So you desegregate, and then now and I saw it with my own two eyes. I seen many of black kids graduate from a Robert E. Lee High School.
Man. Man.
So, again, it is what it is. And so, for a lot of people, and this is what I'm trying to say. So, in Mississippi and a lot of the other states, they began to give what their position is, right? And so Mississippi says, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest in the world, right? This is economic. You're talking money, just like what BGS said, and just like what I said when you talk about conservative and liberal. You have neoliberalism. When people think of this stuff, they're thinking of all this. They're thinking of the social stuff that the media throws in front of you. But these are actual economic stances, right? Born of certain schools of thought, depending on where you stand on, right? Marx, Keynesian, whatever your stance is. And so that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. And so I think that people need to take the time to become a little bit more politically literate, because what happens is us as a collective, we're still getting beat up by words that people were using back in the 19th century. Right. And so
one of the things people got to be mindful of, right?
Yeah.
That the profits from slavery were like, man, just imagine you invest $100, right? What's 100% profit on $100, bro?
Shit, more 1,000 plus, man.
So it was even more than that. You could make 300% profit off of a slave during a year, man. Damn near. You gotta think, bro. That's a lot of cheeseola, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. So, again, the drug game is pennies compared to what slavery was. But that's my argument, right? Or this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, because like like drugs, like say for example, an ounce of crack, okay, like during the crack era, an ounce of crack gonna cost you somewhere around $900, bro. You know what I'm saying? you're only going to make $600 if I know this because I used to do this. Okay, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
I
I'm sorry,
apologize
G, I
for
meant
it.
like
I
10
sold
grand.
poison to
Not
people.
about
Okay,
10
what it
grand.
is. All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
but the whole point is, back in the day, man, an ounce of crack by itself, or an ounce, you know, you could buy for cheaper than that if you bought like Big Eights and shit like that, or you bought like a quarter, or you bought a half of a key or some shit like that. But if you go with the most basic unit, $900 for an ounce of yay, you break that shit down into what they call 50s. Okay, that's a gram. So 28 grams, you know, it's gonna make $1,400, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it is what it is. You only making $600 back off your investment. You can make more, like you said, I'm just confirming. You can make more money off of a slave than you can ever make off selling dope, man. Those are the facts. You know what I'm saying? Those are just the facts, okay?
So you get a
so
slave
who
for $100, you
and it's
flip
legal.
10
You're
bucks.
not getting in trouble for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's unlawful. I mean, it became unlawful, you know, when the North and the federal government decided to crack down on it. But I mean, think about it, bro. You making money hand over fist. And now they talking about they're going to intervene and interrupt that?
Facts.
Oh, man. Hell no. You trying to fuck up my money.
Dog, like I said, man, think of, like you said, you spend $100 and that $100 could flip into 10 grand or better. Of course, like, come on, man. Of course you're going to have problems.
Man,
You know what I'm
big
saying?
product. That's why we got the Civil War.
Yeah, correct. And so, like I said, and that's, and, you know, and like I was telling you, man, for a lot of these states, man, that was their stance, man. Mississippi even said their a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization itself. Right? That's how serious. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's how serious the money is. Again, shout out to your state, Louisiana, right? The people of the slaveholder states are bound together by the same necessity and determination to preserve African slavery, right? Texas, right? The servitude of the African race as existing in these states is mutually beneficial to both bond and free, and is abundantly authorized and justified by the experience of mankind, right? And that's a heavy one, right? To say that it's a mutual benefit to bond and free. So I guess, you know, what you're saying is that slavery is civilizing us, right? Making us better people, moral people, right? So we're no longer the savages, unsaved Christian savages that they've taken away from the dark continent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. You know, like you know, slaves are happy slaves.
Correct. Yeah.
Couldn't be in a better position than sitting at the
Correct.
foot of a white man and you know, a white woman.
Yeah.
Couldn't have a better, you know, otherwise we'd be somewhere beating drums with plates in our lips in the Congo somewhere. You know, and a lot of black people still think that way. You know, like think like white people do. Just it's a fact, man.
Yeah. And you know, Alabama said again to want to damage the institution is to have an open declaration on war, right? And you know, and Mississippi said again, Mississippi went and said, you know, they depended on slavery because none but the black race could bear exposure to the tropical sun, right? And so, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, when the new Confederate states wrote their constitution, right, they made slavery a national rather than a local concern. So it says, you know, again, no bill or law denying or impairing the right of property in Negro slaves shall be passed, right? And so now, you know, for this, there's no other argument. So when you look at the North and the South, the argument was about who was going to make money and how. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't about your liberty. It wasn't about your freedom. It wasn't about making sure that there's a better way of life for you based upon the, you know, the ideals espoused by the Constitution, which was primarily drafted for them. They had themselves in mind, not people of African descent in mind.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Yeah.
and again, and this all ties into, and so for many African Americans, because again, because it appears that whenever you made strides, right, and this is why many African Americans will show up, or just my assumption, will show up for presidential elections, and unfortunately nothing else, because it seems like a lot of our progress comes at intervention from the federal government, not by the state of where you live itself.
Right,
Right.
right. So I mean, so you can see why some black folks would have or show favoritism towards the federal government.
Yes, correct.
I mean, it's understandable given the history of the United States. Okay, it's just understandable because like when you get like major legislation and bills passed, it's passed primarily through Congress at the federal level as opposed to at the state level.
Correct.
I mean, it just, so if you want to understand why, you have this predilection for black folks to ride to the left, or to rely more heavily on the federal government as opposed to states governments, and all of the rhetoric that they use, that would be a major reason why.
Correct.
I mean, we could talk about, ideologically apart from and, abstracting away from the real material conditions which obtain and the historical conditions which obtain. We could have, like this theoretical argument, but like the facts are that, like we live in a race, slave-based culture, or one that emanated from that. And, people are not stupid. You understand? I mean, even though they're not the brightest sometimes, but I mean, they have some sense of the history of the United States, okay? To some degree. All right, now continue on, bro.
Yeah. And so, what I'm saying? So now, again, and this is what I'm trying to say. So now, again, like, and this is what I'm saying. So you get the Confederate vice president himself, right? Alex H. Stevens, right? And, and he gives his speech and he goes, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. Right? So
well, hold on, say the white woman?
No, to the white man. Sorry.
Okay. I was about to say, whoa, I never heard that before.
Yeah, so Alex H. Stevens, right? This is the vice president of the Confederacy. He says, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. Right? So I don't know I don't know what we can say that's clearer than that.
Man, that's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's pretty clear about about where the conservative states would stand. That where the conservative states would stand with black people, or I'm sorry, conservative or your southern states will stand. With black people, and so when people get when you try to get like a lot of revisionist history, of people coming in, and so like the next time that we talk, right? Because it's 3 a.m. here. The next time we talk, because I told nameless protagonist, God willing, he'll be with us. Because I told nameless protagonist that I wouldn't jump into Reconstruction without him.
Okay, I feel you. I haven't seen him though. I know the BGS recently posted a video where Nameless was dropping some gems, but
yeah, man. So Nameless is like, yo, fam, you know what I'm saying? So Nameless is like, when you get to Reconstruction, I'ma slide in on that dance card. You know what I'm saying? So again, because that, this is this is the next thing forward. But like I said, but again, man, I don't know how. In a sense, I don't know how you get more straightforward. I don't know how you get more straightforward than this. The fact that, the whole thing about states' rights was not about you. It had nothing to do with any of us. Right?
Well, it did have something to do with us, but it had something to do with keeping us in a condition of perpetual servitude in an agricultural based economy. That's all centered around slavery. It just is
Correct.
what it is. You know
Correct.
what?
And that's what I'm saying. And then when you tie everything into it, right? And so now that you're tying everything into it, right? These guys are talking from a position that this was ordained by God. Right. And so that's why when you talk about it, so when you took so this is what I'm trying to say. So when you look at it, there's just not physical violence in here, there's epistemic violence going on here. Right. Since this is where you get, the black kids picking the white doll in terms of who you can trust and saying, the black doll is evil, and all of these things. So you're looking at, like I said, you're looking at pretty much a huge money making scheme that was built on a lie that has transformed itself into culture. Right. So look at everything, like I said, look at everything that I talked about, like from the beginning, from the colony of Virginia, down to the curse of Ham, to where we are today. And this is a pickle, this is a precarious situation to act, like I said, to actually be in. And so and that's what I was trying to say is that you have to, and I've been saying this since I came in the manosphere, and BGS just said it, is that you have to learn the language of finance and economics, right? As they say, to know a thing is to know its cause. And sad and most unfortunate, at least from my perspective, for African Americans, in the absence of developing or creating your own state, what you're constantly doing is pretty much renegotiating the terms of your surrender to the state that you're in, right? So you're constantly trying to prove yourself valuable to a place that really, for the most part, doesn't want your input, because you remember. So this ideology, for the most part, it still exists today. But remember, it was in practice in our laws, at least on the books up until what, 1965, 1968. Right. And so if you take
Oh, that's
2020,
ancient history.
yeah. So if you take 2022 and subtract, let's say 1968, that's 54 years, right? I'm 44.
That's ancient history, though, bro. That's what some people will say. That's like, that shit was so long ago. You ain't been no slave for 300 years.
What are you talking? This is all recent. Like I said, this is all recent history. Like, like again. So you're saying, so for the most part, you're saying just about 54 years ago, not even 100 years ago, right? And so again, so if you were having the same argument, right? So what, 19? So if you were having the same argument, let's say in 1995, right? In the year, okay, 19. So 1995. So 1968, right?
That's less than 30 years.
That's less than 30 years. So like, what, so, and you have to remember is that there's the logistics of the laws. So now you go into desegregation. So for the most part, desegregation was still happening through the 80s and 90s. I would venture to say that in the sense that, again, it's like I said, it's still happening. Like I said, it's still happening little by little. In my ex relationship in 1991, they wouldn't let an interracial couple into the prom.
What?
And a part of this was in 1991 in Wedowee, Alabama. Wedowee High School refused to let an interracial couple into the prom.
God damn.
Yeah. 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 And then there were reports of schools having separate proms, right? White proms, black proms, right? And so, like I said, so the thing is that, look, America is called the Great Experiment. And it's really up to the American people collectively to decide what America will eventually become, right? Will it become Atlantis or Utopia, or will it just be another slave-driven empire like the Romans, or you know what I'm saying, or the Persians, right?
Okay, so this is where things get kind of sketchy, right? And what I
Yeah,
want to do is, at some point, and shout out to MLR, he hit me up on the Cash App, and
yeah.
shout out to Draga 001. He says, my uncle was born in Newton, Massachusetts. Mom moved there from Jamaica. They both confirmed it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what he's talking about in terms of confirmed it. Maybe he'll leave another tag here. But here's where things get sketchy, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about desegregation, right?
Yes.
Now that's de jure desegregation. But what about de facto desegregation? That's something I need to talk about. I think I need to discuss that. I'm not going to drag you into that because I know you want to keep in line with the timeline that you're working with, and I don't want to, impose any double duties on you. But I mean, here's my thoughts. Right, America's becoming increasingly more diverse. We can't deny that in terms of its racial demographics.
Yes.
But that doesn't imply that America is becoming de facto less segregated. Now, in some states, go ahead.
To your point, not to cut you off, but if you come to New York City, right, that you could see it clearly in New York City that there are and there are Black and Latino side, because typically we live in the same communities, right? So you're African Americans and you're Puerto Ricans, and then when you would get to like South Shore, Canarsie, those places, that's Italian, right? And then this area is Chinese. This area when like Crown Heights, parts of Flatbush, like, these are Jewish areas, so on and so forth. So yeah, so even in New York City, right, which was supposed to be like a liberal or a free state or whatever the case it is might be. Well, when I was younger, growing up there, and probably still now, that was the exact case, right? Okay, this is where the Yemeni live, near the Yemeni and the Egyptians, they live here around Coney Island, and then the Russians live on that side of Coney Island, or whatever the case may be. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so, I just I'm trying to alert people to the fact that, the battle lines are starting to be drawn. Like, I'm going to tell you what I think. And it might sound fucked up. But, man, I think white people will blow this goddamn country up before they let other people from, different ethnicities take the reins. I think they would rather scorch this place than to let, people from different backgrounds take control. Now, you had a black male president. You had Barack Obama, okay? But he was a safe person. I don't mean to insult Obama, but he's an Oreo, bruh. Barack Obama, for all intents and purposes, is a white man in black skin, bro. He was raised by white people, right?
Yeah.
That's like, no disrespect. He married a black woman, but I think he did that because, he understood the political benefits of doing that. If he wanted to be able to, identify with black folks and to, be able to have them vote for him, he needed to have his hands, in the black pot. And he did so through marrying a black woman. And he didn't marry a dumbass black woman. He married a smart one. You know what I'm saying? So, someone who was his intellectual equal, but someone who saw vision in him and, played the back role, in order to propel his career forward. But at the end of the day, there was a backlash to Obama. We call it Trump. Like, you can say what you want to about Trump, I think all white folks to some degree are racist. Just this is what I think, even some that marry black people, I think they can still, because some of them, they get mad at their partners and call them niggas.
No.
I've seen it, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the United States, man, is not becoming less segregated in virtue of the fact that it's becoming more diverse. And that's the problem I have with America, and the conservatives, these people know, man, like, okay, their numbers are dwindling. They're falling off the map, man. They're not reproducing fast enough. Okay? And so, like, what happens when you got a minority who has a concentrated amount of power and they have control of the institutions and they start to see an encroaching otherness, reaching inside of their gates? What you think they're going to do?
Retaliate.
I'm just saying. So I don't think America's seen, the worst of racial struggle yet. I don't. I'm just being honest about that. We think it's over with everything because we have this meliorist attitude about the condition of politics and the condition of history. We think that things are getting better and that they will get better. I'm just not convinced of that. I'm not.
Well, for me, the question that I will have is, I remember when Trump was president, right, and you had a group of white people that said we will not be replaced. The Tiki Torch gang that came out, and the people, the people that came out and fought them in the streets were other white people, right? So so what? Honestly, what I believe is, because one of the reasons why you don't have dudes coming out, and I mean, anybody could share what their stances are on it. One of the reasons why you don't have dudes coming out like Bull Connor, back in the day now, is because I don't think that it has much to do with how they'll be perceived by African Americans. It has to do that within their own ranks. There are enough people who don't want to be on that nonsense anymore, right? Or don't, like I said, or don't practice it. So if I got a lot of Bull Connor in my chest that I want to get out through my mouth, my concern ain't how Sandog and Gigi gonna feel about it. My concern is who, how someone in my own community is gonna feel about it, and what consequences or repercussions will come from that.
Yeah, I get it, but here's my issue with that, right?
Yeah.
And I said this on the last show that I did. You got to go back and listen to it. I mean, yeah, it's me ranting, or whatever the case may be. I will not say the name of the individual I was ranting on, but I mean, the whole point is, when the last time you seen a white liberal in a hood near you? I mean, they talk that talk. I mean, they like to think that they're good people or whatever the case may be. And a lot of these people are convinced, that racism is an attitude. It's a feeling. It's a matter of subjective consciousness, but they don't see themselves as connected to a system or a chain of institutions that, have deleterious effects on people other than themselves.
Yeah. But once you had desegregation, that's what happened. So prior to that, more than likely, we all had a common experience with the system. So once you get into segregation, right? Our experience with the system now becomes a rainbow, right? There going to be people who are going to say, I don't know what you're talking about, right? All the people I know, that are good. And then there are people who's going to say, it's just this or it's just that. Third, so once you get into desegregation, there's no longer, at least for Black America, in a sense, a common operating picture of what this particular social construct is.
I hear you. My only concern is if it's the case that white liberals, really have become less racist. So, like I said before, man, I got 2 sisters, 6 girl cousins, and 2 daughters. And I'm like, where your white liberal friends at? Only one of them got white friends. One. Out of all them. And so the question is, where your white friends at? Where your white boonies, coonies, Ace Boone coonies?
What do you mean, Gigi? Bill Clinton played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, and he moved to Harlem.
Man, all that pandering don't add up to friendship and social interaction, like on a real, substantive level.
Yeah.
I've had white associates, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, saying they were bad people, but I mean, let's face it, man. America is the residential areas and where people live, they work, and they play are largely segregated areas, bro.
Yeah.
You know, like it might be different in the coastal cities, but I mean, the majority of America, man, is not coastal, bro.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Like the heartland America is like the real America, bro. Like little small little town. You know, you see them when you drive through America all the time, going from one spot to the next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like population 7,000, population 20,000, population 50,000. It's them small little, you know, townships and shit like that. That's America, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the major, but even the major cities are segregated.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I had to pull up a stat, I mean, you can look at it. Okay, so there's a article in Time magazine, and it says more than 80% of large metropolitan areas in the United States were more segregated in 2019 than they were in 1990, according to an analysis of residential segregation released Monday by the Othering or Belonging Institute at the University of California, Berkeley. Now, you know, like I'm just saying, like, we got, like, a lot of black folks have this meliorist leaning, you know, like we're certain that things are going to get better. You know what I mean? Like things that, you know, people are going to begin to amalgamate.
Yeah. But
And
that's
I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm not saying the possibility for that happening, you know, is impossible. But I'm just saying, you know, just based upon the racial history of the United States and the current residential practices, like that's evidence against this meliorist thinking. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, it might be controversial to some in this space. It may be. Okay. I just don't see the evidence for it. It just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then even like one of the instances where I think it was on the East Coast where you had some white woman, dude was like watching birds or some shit like that. He was bird watching. And some white woman, some Karen, called the police on him. And she was a white liberal. Got Democrat shit all on her Facebook page. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't, you know, I'm just, it is what it is, bro. I mean, you know, we've been an hour into this, though. I don't want to have you here, like, much longer. It is a Friday. I just wanted to get my time in. But I think I'm going to do a show. First of all, I have to do a show. I got to respect I'm Just Jules. He wanted me to do a show on Republican motherhood. I have yet to do it. I'm going to do that, okay? In the coming week, I'm going to do that. But also, I think I want to do a show on segregation. Like de facto segregation, right? And, you know.
Because, you know, again, like for me, hold on, what did I do with this thing? Because that's what I wanted to say. Because when you get, so for example, for us, you know, and I'm going to, like, you know, just use like very brief kind of colloquial terms, right? So, and this is what I'm trying to say. When you talk about, you know what I'm saying, economics, right? And who can access what. So again, so in a political context, right? You know, a conservative is someone, right, favoring free enterprise, private ownership, right? So remember, so again, these are economic, right? And what you would call socially traditional ideas, right? And so now, and again, I'm a conservative saying this. Now you you see where certain groups of people have their ideas about what's socially traditional, right? And so for many of us, it could be like, you know, my wife, my two kids, my dog, my white picket fence, and you know, and everybody goes to church on Sunday. And so this is where we will get the split, because a lot of African Americans and Latinos are conservative Christians. A lot of people of the Islamic faith by default would have these same conservative ideas. But it's that slither in it of white supremacy for the most part that pushes everyone out, or pushes, you know what I'm saying, or pushes many people out, right? And so, but for African Americans, it's also a little bit, it's also counterintuitive because America values, so like even on the liberal side, right, it says, relating to or denoting political and social philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties, right, democracy, and free enterprise, right? So now when you look at the difference, there's just a couple of words or a couple of talking points that actually really separates them. And so for African Americans, and that was my question why I asked many times when we call people coons, sellouts, and everything else, again, because to be America is not in a sense how when you talked about how people practice freedom here, right? So it's not freedom in terms of a particular collectivism or an incorporation or an establishment of institutions from individual peoples or families, right? So now in the left, when people talk about individual freedom, it goes back into a term I think you use called negative freedoms, right? And so how people see negative freedoms. And so at the end of the day, man, I'm telling you guys, and BGS came in and said it, and I said, you have to talk with the money. This is how you, again, in the absence, like I said, especially in the absence of your own state and everything else, when you look at what states' rights, basically what states' rights boils down to is somebody's ability to make money. So all the black dudes and Latino dudes that got locked up in the drug trade, they themselves could argue states' rights. There's an argument. So again, so even now you're seeing it play out with abortion, right? So again, they could argue. Look, states' rights is argued with everything from immigration, again, all of these things. But for the most part, in the case of the Civil War and many other parts in American history, it all had to deal with you. But you weren't, whatever the outcome was, you were not included in it. So again, you weren't. So from the North perspective, right? Again, you're not. It's not for you to benefit from Western expansion, right? For all those people care. Again, Gigi, Sandog, keep picking your cotton in that hot Louisiana or that hot Alabama sun. And hey, I'm gonna go to San Francisco and look for gold in those hills, right? Y'all have at it down there. So it's like I said, when we, for America, in a sense, and like I said, it's my country, right? I got 2 combat tours for it and everything else. But again, we have certain romanticized ideas, again, about history. And again, America cannot live up to its potential unless the citizenry, the government is upfront and honest about where it's been, where it's coming from, and where it's going. Because you're with this particular mindset, right? You're not going to be able to. You're not going to last long against the other people that are on the rise.
I hear you,
Right.
bro. So, like, what's the next topic of conversation, man? You
So
said you.
the next topic of conversation is, like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about the Confederate government, just to give it, like I said, just to give it a little contrast, man. And then I'll give you the GG time in the GG channel. So let me reach out to the nameless protagonist to see when he's free, and what I'm saying, the name, because he when he talked to me, he was like, yo, we need to, he's like, I'm going to slide in on that dance card for Reconstruction. So, what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I would come in and talk, like, a little bit more of the Confederate piece, especially post, post Civil War. And then Nameless would come in and I would talk about the conservative piece. And then I would talk about the Democrat and the Republican Party, but specifically the Black Republican Party, or as they call it, the Negro Republican Party, to kind of further shape the picture of how so many things from back then look like a lot of what's happening now. Right. And so, like I said, so I'll get with Nameless, and then, so we'll come back to you with the time and the date, and then we'll be talking Reconstruction.
Sound like a plan to me, brother. Sound like a
Yeah.
plan. Well, thank
Yeah,
you for
man.
coming by tonight, man, or today. Well, tonight for you.
No, it's 3 a.m. It's 3:25 a.m. for me.
Man, if we got to reschedule these things, man, to fit better into your timeline, and you got to
Nah,
let me know.
no, look, I know what, like I said, I know what works for y'all, man. Because what will happen is you would end up talking to me in the morning, like on, like I said, on your time. So nah, this is cool, man. Like I said, it, you know what I'm saying, it works for me. I can
Okay.
make it
Well,
work.
thank you, brother. That's all I can say, Rue.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for coming through, man. And we're about to wrap this thing up, man. I appreciate you again, like I said. And, states' rights, man, bruh. I'm just, I understand, man, like brothers' disgruntledness with, the left at the current moment. I get it. But I mean, you also have to be mindful of history. You can't take things out of context. You feel me? So
Yeah, but again, but that's the thing, and and shout out to BGS and Charles Faulkner and all those guys that have the forums and the panels where you could really expand on these topics. So, like for me, one of the reasons why I kind of come in with a lot of with a lot of major dates and concepts is because I want to give you things that stick, because I could jump in and I could talk about Jefferson Davis. I could talk about a whole bunch of things, but then, the more you talk, the more you waver, or things get lost in context, right? And so the point, the point that I want to deliver, like I said, in all of this and what I've been discussing so much, man, was that again, you were here to make money, and outside of the plantation, sad and most unfortunately, the nation had no idea what to do with you. We were a unwanted population, an undesired population.
yeah, yeah, that's sad, but it is the reality.
Yeah.
So well, peace to you, Sand Dog, and peace to everybody out there in the chat. Shout
I
out to
do.
everybody who donated today. Shout out to BGS. Shout out to Leon08. Shout out to Drega001, Kareem Austin. Shout out to Barry Little, and to those are the people who hit me up. And MLR, big up to y'all, man, and appreciate your help and support. And we out of this thing, man. I'll holler at y'all on the next one. I'm leaning more to Monday than I am tomorrow or Sunday, but who knows, man. I might just drop in and just do something. All depends on how the spirit moves me, bro. You know? All depends on how the spirit moves me. So anyway,
we're gonna have church in here.
man, if the spirit moves me, man, I'll start the church out, man. I'll turn the lights on, get the organ going. Turn on that PA system.
Dog, they would say, let me get my white gloves and stand by the door, team.
Hey, bruh, hey. I hear you, bruh.
Hey, y'all can't come in now. He preaching. Wait for the benediction.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, man. Well, appreciate you, my brother, man. I appreciate you, man. So we up out of this thing, man. I'll holler at you on the next one. Get you some rest, bro.
All right, dog. Rue.
Rue, dog. Peace out, people, man. I'll holler at y'all on the next one.